Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin with Jurassic Magic, and I thought to myself, Final Fantasy is coming out with so many new cards and a lot of great reprints. I thought to myself it would be easy to make a deck 100% only Final Fantasy cards with specific characters in mind. I'm going to be doing a couple of these different type of decks, so stay tuned and subscribe. The first commander I'm going to make this deck out of would be Cloud X Soldier, and this one is going to be an equipment theme, and again this is 100% only Final Fantasy cards, whether they have Final Fantasy art in them with reprints, or with new cards in the Commander Precons, or in the main set. But before I dive any further, if you want to support my work on YouTube, consider joining my Patreon, as there's a lot of great benefits such as early video access like this, and patron suggested videos. Also, I do have a TCG player affiliate link if you're looking to buy any of these singles that I talk about today, so definitely go check it out. And so without further ado, let's talk about Cloud X Soldier and building the ultimate Voltron deck around him only using Final Fantasy cards. So Cloud is a very impressive commander for 2 red, white, and a green. Don't mind my dyslexia. It's a legendary creature, human, soldier, mercenary with haste. And when Cloud enters, attach up to 1 target equipment card you control to it. And whenever Cloud attacks, draw a card for each equipped attacking creature you control. Then if Cloud has power 7 or greater, you create 2 treasure tokens, and he has a 4/4 body. So this is extremely strong. It has very powerful stats of haste and can auto equip on ETB. This commander will also provide you card draw with the more creatures you control that are equipped, and give you treasure tokens. This is providing everything you want in a commander. And just to kind of break down this list, since this is going to be a full deck tech, I will first focus on the staples of card draw, ramp, and interaction, all in the Final Fantasy flavor. Then I will discuss some of the best characters that you could utilize in your Cloud deck, and then following that I'll discuss some of the best equipment you could utilize too as win cons. So now with that said, let's start off with some staples. So the first thing I'm going to go over is ramp, and there is a ton of options in this type of deck. The Commander Precons did get a lot of good reprints as far as ramp goes, with like Farseek, 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, and Rampant Growth. All 4 of these are great because they're small in CMC, only costing 2 mana each. This is going to help us in the early game ramp ahead and cast our commander and other equipment. Because there's a lot of legendary creatures in this deck, I thought Relic of Legends would be a great fit in this deck. You tap an untapped legendary creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. This could be great specifically if some creatures have vigilance. We could swing in and then later tap our creatures for mana to ramp a little bit further too. And of course Soul Rings, Thought Vessels, and Arcane Signets. Those are kind of no-brainers. But again, the reason why I point these out is because they have art with Final Fantasy on them, and they're some of the best of the best. So that's mainly it for ramp. There's other ramp options, but of course those are the ones I wanted to highlight. Moving on to card draw, there are some cards from the Precon like Bugenhagen, Wise Elder, which acts as a mana dork and can give you card draw if you have a creature with power 7 greater on the battlefield. And you could also utilize Professor Hojo. This will reduce activated abilities of equipment you control, along with giving you card draw whenever 1 or more creatures you control become target of an activated ability. Another card I really like is Snort. Some people may or may not like this one, but I personally think it's a great card. It acts as a wheel effect. Each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards, then Snort deals 5 damage to each opponent who discarded their hand this way, and it has a flashback cost for 5 and a red. This is pretty good overall because if we're swinging at our opponents, most likely they're losing a lot of life. Because they're losing a lot of life in the process, they might not want to wheel and lose 5 more damage. So that is something to note, and refilling our hand for 5 cards can be huge. But I feel like in most situations, our commander is going to provide a lot of card draw, so I didn't focus on that as much. But as far as interaction goes with removal, there is a ton. You get Swords of Plowshares, Dispatch, Path to Exile, and many more. And if you want to go into the board wipes, that's even better. There are a ton of board wipes that you could utilize, like Vanquish the Horde, Farewell, or even Austere Command. I don't try to go into them too much, but I feel like there are some that can be utilized with this deck. Each of these will really help you win the game, especially if your creatures have some sort of indestructible ability. But sometimes your creatures may not have that built-in protection, so you may want to utilize some cards like Clever Concealment or even Heroic Intervention in that new frame from the Secret Lair. So again, those are some of the staples as far as ramp, card draw, and interaction go. There's a ton more, but of course I just wanted to highlight some basics to kind of get you the idea that there's a lot more cards that have Final Fantasy art on them than meets the eye, which is a Transformers reference, and this is not a Transformers video. But besides that point, what are some of the famous characters that we could put in this deck that we could totally take advantage of? Because this is an equipment based deck, Gilgamesh Master at Arms is incredible. When it enters or attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put any number of equipment cards from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever you put 1 or more equipment onto the battlefield this way, you may attach one of them to a samurai samurai you control. So most likely you're going to be attaching an equipment to Gilgamesh, but that's completely okay, because with Cloud, we want to get a wide army of creatures that have equipment attached to them. So this will help us do that and get a huge amount of equipment on the battlefield too. Also in the bonus sheet, Through the Ages, we did get some great reprints like Squall Leonhardt and Freon Swordmaster. They are reprints for cards that work well with equipments like SRAM and Danitha. Squall is a great target for equipment because it has First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink, and it can reduce the equipment spells we cast, and we can get some card draw with SRAM whenever we're casting those equipment spells, so that's great value overall. Another card I like because it's low CMC is the Dane Tribal. It is a reskin of Ragavan Nimble Pilfer. This is great in the early game, gaining us treasure and potentially getting us some card draw from our opponent's library. Ragavan is good and bad for some reasons. For example, it's really good in the early game, but as the game goes on, it's not as good. However, when we have equipment attached to him, he'll become bigger and can be a better threat on the battlefield. And with this next one, even though technically it is a partner, I do believe it's going to be very good in this type of strategy where we're swinging in wanting to deal a lot of combat damage. It is the reskin of Bruce Tarl with Hyuga Kuka. And the reason why I like this one is because when it enters or attacks, target creature you control gains double strike and lifelink until end of turn. Imagine just giving our Cloud those abilities. We're going to gain a huge amount of life, all the while swinging for that much more damage. Double strike is one of my favorite keywords, and matched with lifelink, this is a deadly combo. And in a weird way, this is technically going in a little bit of a go wide theme because we want to go wide with a lot of creatures, equip them with a lot of different cards. That's why Hero of Light or Adelaide Resplendent Cathar is also an excellent choice. It has Vigilance, and its power is equal to the number of creatures you control. That's very good, especially in a Voltron strategy. And whenever you attack for each opponent, create a 1/1 white creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. So this is a wonderful option to go wide with a huge army. Also, I'm going to go a little off topic and talk about some more Final Fantasy Through the Ages cards. Then I'm going to go back to some creatures because I just wanted to highlight them for your own good, just so you know which ones you could put in your deck. Search for the Frozen Esper is Nature's Claim, a great removal spell for artifacts or enchantments. Lightning Bolt is another incredible option, dealing 3 damage to any target. And a really good win con, Akroma's Will, reskinned as Blessing of the Oracle. All these are great options. I know I should have mentioned them earlier with interaction, however, right now I'm currently looking at the sheet for Final Fantasy Throughout the Ages and forgot to mention them there. Alright, so back to some of the creatures that are going to be good in this deck from Final Fantasy. If you did buy the Limit Break Precon deck, you're probably familiar with some of these cards as they're new. Armory Automation is an incredible card. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, you may attach any number of target equipment to it, so that's quite powerful on attack trigger and enters trigger. Barret Avalanche Leader is also another incredible option. Whenever equipment you control enters, you create a 2/2 red rebel creature token, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to a target rebel you control. So whether you attach it to itself or attach it to another rebel, this is going to help you go wide with a lot of tokens, and of course that's what we want to be doing with Cloud because we get to draw cards for each equipped creature attacking. And that's why something like Red 8 Proud Warrior is very good because other modified creatures you control have Vigilance and Trample, and when it enters you return target aura equipment card from your graveyard to your hand, so it's like an Eternal Witness for those kind of spells. And Vigilance is a heavily underrated mechanic. You could swing in and stay back and block. And of course I had to give a mention to Pure Steel Paladin. Whenever an equipment you control enters, you may draw a card, and it could cost reduce the equipments by 0 as long as you have 3 or more artifacts. Another wonderful option in this deck would be Furion Wild Rose Warrior. Equipped creatures you control have haste, that's very good. Not only that, it's basically a token maker. Whenever another non-token equipment you control enters, create a token that's a copy of it, except it has this equipment equipped abilities cost 2 less to activate. However, you do sacrifice those tokens at the beginning of the next upkeep, but that's not a big downside because if you're getting 2 of those, it can be quite powerful depending on what kind of equipments you copy. There are also 2 different versions of Cloud that you could put in this deck. Cloud Planet's Champion. It's basically just a Voltron card. During your turn, as long as Cloud is equipped, it has double strike and indestructible. That's quite powerful. Indestructible is a very powerful keyword. And equipped abilities you activate that target Cloud cost 2 less to activate, so this is basically a Voltron commander on steroids. This could be the actual commander of the deck, however, Cloud X Soldier does add green to your mana pool, which I would prefer in my opinion. However, the best Cloud would be Cloud Midgar Mercenary. For double white, when it enters, search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, as long as Cloud is equipped. If an ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to it triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. That is huge. There are some incredible equipments we want to double triggers with, and of course itself being a tutor for equipments means that it could be abusable. Finding the best equipment for the right type of situation and put it into your hand and then put it onto the battlefield later on. And of course, if you do have some blink options, the more abusable Cloud Midgar Mercenary and even Cloud X Soldier can be because it does have an enters trigger if you want to cheat cheap equip costs. But now let's move on and talk about the best equipment, because this is a Voltron deck after all. Let's pick out the best ones in our arsenal. So first up, I'm going to be talking about the new upcoming secret lair that focuses on equipments. There are some equipments that we could utilize in this type of deck, like Clive's Invictus Blade. It is a reskin of Blade of Selves, which is a very good card, especially for this type of deck. Equipped creature has Myriad, and it has Equip 4. So this I like a lot, because sometimes we want to go wide with some creatures that have really good abilities. This will technically work with legendaries, but the two other legends that are tokens will have to apply the legendary rule. You will have to sacrifice 2 of them, but if you have a non-legendary creature attached to this can be extra useful. I also really like Colossus Hammer, or otherwise known as Gaia's Dark Hammer, mainly because equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying and magic equipping this to Cloud right away, because when it enters the battlefield, you just auto-equip it, making him a huge creature, giving him +10/+10. Another card in that secret lair would be Titus's Brotherhood Sword. This is a reskin of Sword of Truth and Justice, which can be very powerful in this type of deck because it gives protection from white and from blue and gives them +2/+2. Protection from white is very important because, of course, white has some of the best removal. It also does give you some abilities when you deal combat damage. You put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and you proliferate. That's very powerful. We want to buff up creatures and buff them up any further with any proliferation triggers. And the last card from that secret lair, even though technically it's not equipment, it focuses on equipment with Armageddon Unleashed. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, return an equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. During your turn, you may activate equipped abilities anytime you could cast an instant, and it has another ability you may pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost of the first equip ability you activate during each of your turns, so this can be quite powerful with recursion, activating equip abilities at instant speed, and of course decreasing an equip ability to 0 only once each turn. So overall, this is quite powerful. Love this card for this type of deck. I also wanted to focus on some cards from the precon. Some classics like Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots can protect your commander or other creatures you control. Another protection equipment would be Darksteel Plate, because equipped creature has indestructible and itself has indestructible. That's quite powerful. Hero's Blade is another excellent choice. Equipped creature gets +3/+2, and whenever a legendary creature you control enters, you may attach this equipment to it. This is pretty good because there's a decent amount of legends in this deck. If we don't want to just equip it to Cloud itself, we can equip it to another creature that enters. And another equipment that I think can be quite powerful is, of course, Sword of the Animus. This is a great ramp piece. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. This will help speed up the ramp in our deck, so that way we can put more stuff onto the battlefield. But now I wanted to share the best of the best. What are the best equipments that you could put in this type of deck? Well, first is also another card from the precon, Wrecking Ball Arm. This is incredible. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 7/7 and can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and you can equip a legendary creature by paying 3 mana or equip 7. Of course, most likely this is going to be cheated down to 3 or nothing, because with our commander it just auto equips, and he'll have base power and toughness 7/7. That's huge because that'll just trigger our commander's ability right away and get that value of putting treasure on the battlefield. Another insane equipment in this deck would be Machinist Arsenal. It does have the job select ability, which is kind of like Living Weapon, where you're putting a token on the battlefield and equipping that creature with the equipment you casted. But this one is quite powerful. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 for each artifact you control and is an artificer in addition to its other types. And what's very important about this, if you swing in with Cloud and if his power is 7 or greater, you get to make 2 treasure tokens. And would you look at that, with Machinist Arsenal, that equipped creature is going to get +2/+2 for each artifact you control. So additionally, when you are swinging with Cloud, when you make those treasure tokens, you're going to give him +4/+4 on that attack trigger. So that is crazy. And of course, with any other artifact you have on the battlefield, he's going to be even bigger. Another crazy equipment from the main set would be Ultimate Weapon. For 7 mana, whenever a equipped creature attacks, destroy target creature an opponent controls. Additionally, equipped creature gets +7/+7. That's quite big. And of course, it has equip 7, but again, there's a lot of ways we cheat equip cost, so that's not a big deal, but giving it a creature +7/+7 is going to be nuts. Along with destroying a target creature an opponent controls, that's also removal. So either way, this is a great removal spell, and quite literally a player removal spell in a way. But you better hold on to your butts, because there's still 2 more equipment I wanted to talk about. I know I've been going on and on with equipment and creatures. I just wanted to talk about 2 more from the main set that are absolutely incredible. A-tier and Prywin. Equipped creature has base power and toughness XX, where X is your life total. So yeah, this could get out of hand, especially if you get this early out on the battlefield. Equip it to your commander. Let's just say you have like 30 life. Your commander will be a 30/30, swinging in with haste. Of course, most likely that's not going to be the situation, because it is 6 to cast and 5 to equip. That is quite steep in the mana cost. However, even if you have like 14 life left, your commander is still going to be like a 14/14, which is still pretty big. And even in a dire situation, if you only have like 5 life left, that's still completely okay, because it's going to be a 5/5. That's not a big deal. But of course, there's a lot more upside, especially if you give lifelink to your commander. The bigger it will grow exponentially over time with this card. Of course, you could cheat this equipment or really any other card that's a permanent onto the battlefield directly. With the Buster Sword, this is incredible for the deck. Equipped creature gets +3/+2, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. They may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the damage without paying its mana cost. I like how this gives Cloud, the main commander, exactly 7 power, so that way you could trigger the treasure token ability. However, this is just going to cheat permanents onto the battlefield or really cast any spells like A tier or Prywin. Obviously, it depends on how much damage you do, but still, this is quite crazy. Cheating in cards is really powerful. Also, this is giving you card draw. I know a lot of people are not a big fan of this. I personally think it's really strong, and especially with this Cloud, it's going to be absolutely insane. However, that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Cloud X Soldier. Again, this is completely 100% Final Fantasy cards only. There are some cards from the pre-con, some cards from the main set, some cards from the bonus sheet, and the secret lair. That might not seem like a lot to make a coherent, powerful deck, but after making the deck list, it seems super powerful. Even though you don't have access to the rest of the cards in Magic the Gathering, only Final Fantasy cards exclusively, I still think that this could get the job done very efficiently and is very powerful. But I would like to hear your thoughts. Is there any other cards that I missed that you wanted to mention yourself? Make sure to comment down below. Also, if you can, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.